When I first launched the show, I had Mark Cuban on, and I appreciated him coming on, and he gave me a bunch of waxing poetic about how human rights really matter and you have to stand up for them in the context of BLM being spray painted all over New York and on his basketball courts and so on. Then we got to the part where he and the NBA are taking all this money from China, and his commitment to human rights changed a little. He talked about it a little differently than he did when bashing America. I think Mark Cuban's not a bad guy, but it was a fun exchange. He was caught and he knew it. Okay, so he's still out there trying to pretend that he is the chief spokesperson for DEI. And this is after the Mavericks got in a bunch of trouble for like terrible treatment of women. So now he's like kind of pretending like, oh, no, I'm the chief DEI person ever. And he tweeted out, he's been very defensive of it. Bill Ackman, among others, have been pounding him saying, you don't understand what you're supporting. You know, look what DEI has done to the Jews, for one example. No, he won't hear of it. So he tweeted out just the other day, 2 days ago, it's a long tweet, but what he says in part is, I've never hired anyone based exclusively on race, gender, or religion. I only ever hire the person that will put my business in the best position to succeed. And yes, race and gender can be part of the equation. I view diversity as a competitive advantage. Okay, so then enter the EEOC commissioner, one of them, Andrea Lucas, who responds, hey, Mark Cuban, EEOC commissioner here. Unfortunately, you're dead wrong on black letter Title VII law. As a general rule, race/sex can't even be a motivating factor, nor a plus factor, a tiebreaker, or a tipping point. It's important employers understand the ground rules here. It's exactly right. He has fallen afoul of the law, Josh. And she actually tweeted out, this woman, an old article she had written right after the Supreme Court decision striking down affirmative action at the college level, saying, hello, this finally brings universities into compliance with what's been happening or should be happening under the law in corporate America for years, saying the court has never blessed employers taking race-conscious employment actions based on interests in workforce diversity. It's illegal. You cannot hire someone as a plus factor or weight the fact that they're black or they're Native American. It's a hard no. It's unlawful. And yet they've been getting away with this, especially since George Floyd, as long as the person not getting hired is white.
Well, Megyn, racial discrimination in America is obviously illegal. It is unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment and is statutorily illegal under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But, it is ironic, and the great Christopher Caldwell of Claremont Institute wrote a whole book on this called Age of Entitlement. It's really unfortunate how the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was a noble statute that had I been a legislator at the time, I would have proudly voted for. But it is unfortunate that the courts and the administrative state have weaponized that statute in unfathomable ways, or at least ways that could not possibly have been contemplated by the lawmakers at the time that they passed it. And, you mentioned affirmative action. It's very hard to not talk about affirmative action in this context. You basically had, in the aftermath of the Civil Rights Act and the emergence of the affirmative action regime with the Bakke case at the court in the late 1970s, you had the emergence of two twin conceptions of the American regime. On the one hand, you have the actual American regime, which is the regime of color blindness, that we are all equal under the law, the regime of Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence, of Abraham Lincoln leading the Union to victory in the Civil War, of the Reconstruction Amendments, and then Martin Luther King speaking there on the National Mall. And then on the other hand, you have this other conception of the American regime. That would be the conception of Ibram X. Kendi of critical race theory, the notion that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, the remedy for present discrimination is future discrimination. And you actually saw that play out in the affirmative action cases at the court just this past summer. So Clarence Thomas's concurrence opinion, one of my favorite writings that CT has probably ever written on the court, wrote for however long it was, 30, 40, 50 pages, taking the first position. By contrast, Ketanji Brown Jackson tried, I think she grossly failed, but she tried to defend that second alternative conception of the American regime. Those are the basic trade-offs. So for a while, we basically just have not been enforcing the letter of the law, of what the law actually says, because of the courts and the administrative state. Good for this EOC commissioner in trying to reassert what the law actually says, especially after the affirmative action case. Mark Cuban, unfortunately, is totally clownish when it comes to these topics. I'm happy that you schooled him, and I hope that others continue to do so as well.
I think people have forgotten in the wake of George Floyd, Sarah, that it's illegal to discriminate on the basis of race in hiring and in most places. You cannot not hire somebody because you need more people of a different race. So your company looks, quote, more diverse. And here, in case you had any doubts about Mark Cuban's commitment to doing exactly this thing that violates the law, is the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks it's right after George Floyd. Her name is Cint Marshall. She puts it all out there. Look at her.
I know the business case for diversity, and you have to have a diverse group of people around the table if you really want to be as successful as you can be. And so we took that on. So we laid out that vision, laid out a set of values, and then I had one-on-one with all the employees and then made some leadership changes. And So now we have almost 50% women in leadership and 47% people of color. And so diversity matters. It matters.
We got to get rid of the white men. That's what she's saying. It's illegal. And it's just morally wrong, Sarah. And I think people have caught on to how absurd and wrong this is.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It is morally wrong. But I would also like to bring up, it's a dumb business strategy, too. It is entirely preposterous to think, I mean, she just said the key to success for a business is diversity. Absolutely not. The key to success for a business is, of course, hiring based on merit and experience and expertise. I mean, these people are so ridiculous with their virtuous, crying for all of the buzzwords and making sure that they have all of these diversity hires. You know why I know Mark Cuban understands the ridiculousness of it? Because if he was truly worried about diversity in every shape, way, or form, he would have a bunch of fat white guys on his basketball team. Why doesn't he? Well, because A, they're white, and B, he knows that won't make his team better. And so they keep throwing around all these buzzwords because they want to be the most virtuous among us. It's always white men who do this, you notice, as Mark Cuban is. But I will say, I am calling for any white man who has not been hired by the Dallas Mavericks, file that lawsuit, baby. All right.
Yes.
And everyone needs to be filing these lawsuits to expose these people, because I think that's going to be the only way to deter them from engaging in these practices.
Yes, your case is made for you. You've got Mark Cuban, the owner, and the CEO on camera and in writing saying, we discriminate against whites and men. That's the flip side of the way they put a positive spin on it. But what they're saying is we discriminate against whites and men. Think about how outrageous it would be 40 years ago for somebody to say, we discriminate against blacks and women. It's a real plus for you if you could come in here as a white guy. It's obvious when you just flip it on its head, but they've been getting away with it for far too long. If you're an American over 50, you've weathered challenging times. You've witnessed moments of greatness, and now you may be feeling like you're watching it all fall apart. One organization that's looking out for you is the Association of Mature American Citizens, or AMAC. Have you heard of them? AMAC is basically a non-woke alternative to the AARP, and it's America's leading conservative senior advocacy and benefits organization. They have more than 2 million members, and AMAC listens to their members and voices their members' concerns in Washington. They offer guidance, support, and they address the issues that matter most to you. You can join AMAC today with memberships starting as low as $12 a year. Americans are recognizing that where they spend their dollar matters. Support an organization that supports you. Take action. Visit AMAC, that's AMAC.us/Megyn to choose the right plan for you. AMAC is more than just talk. AMAC gets things done. Visit AMAC.us/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.